You ever heard of colorism? Do you know what it is?
Well, had it explained to me, and I know a little bit about colorism. Do I need to go in detail about what it is?
Just give me a brief summary of what it is.
Basically, the relationship between African Americans of darker and lighter complexion, and I guess the discrimination that we have between one another.
In the black community, yes.
All right. Can you just give me a brief overview of what you think it is?
I mean, I think that here we're talking about difference of colors, between black people. How darker skin and lighter skin. So that's pretty much.
I have heard of it, but not in those terms. The term that was expressed to me, and that was by a relative, was being color struck. When people are color struck, you prefer one shade.
Overall, do you think colorism exists in America?
Of course, most definitely.
Can you give me a few examples of?
I mean, when you listen to rap music, if you listen closely at the lyrics, and if you read the lyrics, and you can tell that is out there. And when you talk to some men and even females, they're gonna tell you that some dark-skinned women have, I'm gonna say, low self-esteem, compared to lighter-skinned women, and some men, unfortunately, are more attracted to light-skinned women. So I think that is most definitely something that exists in our
Yes,
community.
I do. I strongly believe it exists in America, and I think it's more so in our communities, in African American communities, that it
Absolutely,
does exist.
colorism exists absolutely in North America and the United States. I don't know if we need to elaborate or.
Just give me an example or two.
I'll give an example. There was back in the 1990s. There was a mayoral race in the city of Atlanta, and one of the mayoral candidates was a gentleman named Bill Campbell. Bill Campbell was of a fair skin color, and Marvin Arrington, and he was darker. And the two of them, very intelligent, both of them well educated, I believe both attorneys. And during that campaign, Marvin Arrington brought up a subject that was, I guess, a little bit painful for him. He told Bill Campbell that while he was here passing up north, passing for white, Marvin Arrington and his family were down here suffering because they couldn't pass for white. So I think that's one of the kind of tones that we have between one another when it comes to skin tone, skin color, or colorism, as it is called.
Can you give some examples of your experiences with colorism?
Well, growing up, I grew up in a predominantly African American community in Brooklyn, New York, and for the most part, there weren't a lot of fair-skinned people in our community, and we were treated differently. I've often treated poorly, especially in school, and it was challenging. It was really challenging, and a lot of it I didn't understand, but I honestly believe that those were some of the things that were going on.
Do you believe that colorism exists in politics?
It's everywhere in America. So I don't think there is any component, of the society that is left out of it. So I'm gonna say yes.
It does exist in politics. Like that was an example that I showed you. But I don't think it exists more so in politics amongst African Americans. I think generally, if someone is qualified, they will generally get the vote, or somebody that people can identify with, regardless of whether they're darker, lighter. But I think sometimes, just my opinion, I could be biased, but I think a lighter complexed person would seem just a better fit for some people.
Yes, I do. I honestly do believe it exists in politics, especially when you consider the number of elected black officials in our country. We're still in the minority, and we're definitely in the minority in terms of having elected black officials. We have very, at this time, and I honestly believe because the majority of voters are not African American, and they're not very comfortable with darker skin.
Skin color plays a huge role in who's elected for offices.
I think locally, it may not have much effect because at a local level, most of the people who that candidate represent pretty much look like them. I think once you get to a national scene, I think it makes more of a difference. I think there are some things that have broken through the color barrier, but I also still think there's still that sense of somebody who's light skinned appeals to a more broad audience than someone who's darker complected. But I still think that America has come a long way in that we would elect someone who would best fit that candidacy.
Yeah, I do. If the person people typically relate to people that look like them. And because we are in a minority, I honestly believe that that's why we have a minority of elected officials. So it does exist in politics.
Final question. Do you believe that our current president, Barack Obama, would have been elected had he been a darker skinned African American?
Most definitely not. No, I don't think he would have.
No, I do not believe he would have been elected. Again, because there were a lot of African Americans came out and vote in record numbers. However, we're still in the minority, which means predominantly Caucasian Americans voted. And had he been a darker skinned American, I honestly don't believe they would have voted for him.
Ooh. It's kind of hard to say, but I would dare to say I think he would not have, simply because for a long time in this country we have had a negative connotation when it comes to dark skinned people, and I think if the president were of a darker hue, I honestly believe that it would have had maybe a somewhat of a negative effect. I think because he was a lighter complexion, I think he appealed to more people. But I also still want to believe that since he was very intellectual, one of the first black people to be the head of the Harvard Law Review, I would hope and think that that had more to do with it than his skin color. So to answer your question, I honestly do believe that if he were darker complected, he probably would not be president.